Welcome to What Drives You. I'm Kevin Miller. In this episode, how to understand and create a user-friendly strategy for business and for life. I've grown up in the human potential movement and the world of entrepreneurship and business. Having a goal, which I refer to as a destination, is paramount, as if we don't know where we're going, we can never get there. However, to get there, we also need a strategy. And we generally think we have one, but we very often misinterpret what a real effective strategy is. So I have with us here Seth Godin. He's the expert on it. Seth, if you don't know him, which is unlikely, he's known as one of the most pervasive voices in the business world, but just as many people follow him for personal insight. I know so many people who have read his daily blog for well over a decade, if not two at this point. Seth has just a discerning perspective on a meaningful life and a business that matters and succeeds. He was actually one of my very first guests when I hosted the Ziglar Show. And he cites Zig Ziglar as one of the most influential mentors in his life, again, personally and professionally. So I recently sat down with Seth to talk about strategy. And as usual, he popped a lot of myths about what is and isn't strategy. He's culminated it in a brand new book called This Is Strategy, Make Better Plans. And as you're about to hear, he asks as many great questions as he makes great statements. He asks things like, if we don't have a strategy, what do we have? He says a strategy isn't a map, it's a compass. I think you'll want to hear how he actually clarifies that. It was really eye-opening for me. I asked Seth where we most miss out on what a strategy actually is. And while the topic is headline strategy, Seth gives a lot of focus to systems, having systems that work. That's what makes up a great strategy. Again, in our personal lives and our work, you can apply it to both ways. Again, the brand new book is called This Is Strategy, Make Better Plans. And you're going to hear some of the headline topics now that I just wanted to learn more about. When I'm not having these conversations about human potential, I'm working directly with people on their personal human potential. If you feel you're not meeting yours or you want to expand it, increase your progress, I'd be honored to connect. Just go to kevinmiller.co and let's talk. Here are a few sponsors that help make the show possible, then drive with Seth Godin and me to consider how to understand and create a user-friendly strategy for business and life. Let's see what we can learn for ourselves today. Well, Seth, I'm glad you noticed the books on the back of my shelf here. The last time I was privileged to be with you was around 2015 when I was host of the Ziglar Show. And you and Tom Ziglar and I sat around. It was 3 years after Zig had passed away, and talked about the influence in your life. And you had a lot to say about that book, Secrets of Closing the Sale. And I was incredibly honored and grateful to start off my podcasting career with you as a guest. Thank you for that and for being here again.
Well, thanks for the way you show up. It's not easy. People don't realize making one podcast is fun, but making years and years of podcasts, it's a lift, and I'm grateful for it. So thank you.
Well, you of course are an inspiration with that, with the daily blog and the amount of content you've put out. It has influenced my life. I will give a requested shout out from John Dale, who said to say hi. He was here in my office a few days ago, and I was sharing offices with him back in 2008 when he took off on this wild adventure. It felt like to me and to a lot of his friends and family to be with you for, I think, about 6 months in your first alternative MBA.
It was the only one I ever did in person. He basically lived with me all day, every day for 6 months. It was very special.
Well, again, I could go on and on about the history and the influence you've had in my life and with so many people that I'm around. So thanks for being here. This book, Seth, I have been going back and forth on since they sent me the initial PDF. There's so many things, and I wanted to come back ultimately and
I think my question I wanted to hear you address to begin with was, if we don't have a strategy, what do we have?
I think most people don't have a strategy. It's possible to live your life that way. What you have is a pile of tactics, and you have a system that has indoctrinated you into going forward without a strategy. Because the system doesn't want you to change it. And the system isn't here for you to come out ahead. So we learn all these tactics from the time we're in school about what's on the test, what checklist items, how do we show up. But if we don't know where we're going, if we're not sure we're going in the right direction, going faster probably isn't going to help.
My book, this show, is called What Drives You. That's a lot of my story, Seth, is going fast. I enjoy innovating and creating, and yet it was the realization that I often was not clear on where I was going. And it was really hard to accept when that dawned on me, and that was prior to me writing the book, because I thought I did, because I saw a need and I thought, oh, I can help that. There's a problem. I've got a solution. There's an opportunity. To me, if you had asked me then, and even in recent years, I'm afraid I would have said that, well, that is the strategy, only to find out later that we don't have a strategy. But especially on the entrepreneurial front, it feels so hard not to get caught up in that. Well, the strategy is, there's a need. I got a solution. Is that not the strategy? Where do we miss it most?
So the market is about finding problems and solving them.
Right.
I am not going to diminish the urgency and meaningfulness of that. But people don't change their minds because you show them that you are smarter than them. And they don't change their minds because you present them with facts. They have to believe they have a problem. And they have to believe that they will benefit from solving it. And they have to trust you that you are the person who can solve it for them. Many entrepreneurs think that being right is sufficient. And then they get frustrated because the market doesn't agree with them.
That aspect makes it, you talk about this a lot. I came to it a couple times, at least a few times, that it's a game.
Yeah.
And I realized, just paying attention to myself, I didn't really want to hear that. I know that, but I want to feel like, no, it's a mission. And yet I have had too many failed missions because I did not, a term I use a lot, I did not render to Caesar what was Caesar's. And if the marketplace is Caesar's and it's a game, then there's best practices, which is what we often come to Seth Godin for, is to look at, okay, what is working out there. But I just have to, I wanted to admit, and I think I know a lot of my peers feel that way, that it almost feels disappointing that it's a game, because we want to think that our intent will succeed.
So game gets a bad rap.
Yeah.
Mostly because of monopoly, or, trouble with Pop-O-Matic, or all the things from Milton Bradley. Those are board games. Those are kids' games. But it was game theory that kept the world from being immolated in a nuclear disaster in the 1960s. That's a game.
Yeah.
Arms control is a game. Figuring out how to get a promotion is a game. It's a game because there are players, there's limited resources, there are rules. Some people don't know the rules, and there are outcomes. Once we see things as a game, two benefits occur. One benefit is you can use what we already know about games to play it better. And the second thing is you don't have to take yourself so damn seriously. That you can realize that, what I learned from Zig, among many things, was if he's knocking on this door, he's about to engage with someone who does not know him. And he is there to solve their pots and pans problem. And if they don't buy from him, it's not because he's a bad person or because they don't like him. They're not buying from him because he played the game poorly. And that gives him the resilience to play again tomorrow. So what we have is the opportunity to realize that time is either our ally or our enemy. but it's going to happen no matter what. So the next time you play this game, are you going to be in a better position or a worse position than this time? Because if we can build a cycle of getting better at the game, the outcomes get better, and we are able to be more of service to the people we are trying to solve a problem for.
Holding it lightly continues to be an endeavor I pursue, because I realize it's difficult, because hopefully it's because I care. But holding it lightly. And as you talk there, I've had experience. I have one that stands out, and it was working with a gentleman who was an incredible inventor, just incredible. And he was very serious about it. And he got frustrated with the game and got pissed off about the game, and by being beaten by people who played the game better, but didn't have as quality a product. And as you're talking, and of course, I'm just taking everything to my own ownership and wondering, how often does my integrity, or at least my intent to have integrity, get in the way of doing a good job?
So let's talk about a good job.
Okay.
In the 1920s, tens of thousands of people in Switzerland were suffering or dying from a disease called goiter. And a country doctor figured out that you could cure goiter with 1 drop of iodine added to salt. That's where iodized salt came from. It took the Swiss medical authorities 10 years before they endorsed his easily tested approach. That if we think about Ignaz Semmelweis, who proved that doctors washing their hands kept women from dying in childbirth, it took 20 years for the medical establishment to endorse his approach. He died a broken man in an insane asylum. Here are people who are saving folks' lives, but because they didn't play a game in a system that's deadly serious, lots of people ended up ill or dead. We have this chance to make things better, but we have to make moves that acknowledge there is a system and that the system wants things to stay the way they are. So if we're going to make change happen, and change can be get this person to be a customer, change can be change the way an entire culture works. It will only happen if we have empathy for the people and the system that are already there.
Yeah. Well, I'll keep hitting on Zig. And his quote, I was asked recently on a show I was on for a favorite quote. And the first one that often comes to mind is, if you have a product or service that can help someone, it is your moral obligation to sell it. It brings me to thinking about the game. Back to my word integrity that popped up a minute ago as you were talking about, that if I have something that can help, if I have part of my integrity, then is to play the game well. I think that sticks out, Seth, because I have done that poorly. I've let my altruistic intent lead and think that's going to make it work. And I know better. I've seen way too many books with something that I think it's a message that I think, oh my gosh, it's a life-changing message. And only 2,000 people will ever see it because it's the dumbest book cover I've ever seen on planet Earth. And I don't like that. I want to think that no, whether there's a supernatural power or the law of the universe, or there's just good sense. Come on, if it's good and it's going to help people, it's going to go out there. And son of a gun, it's demoralizing when it doesn't, which again, I see as I read through your stuff, I thought well, I was going to say it's common sense. It's obviously not, or you wouldn't have written a book about it, and I wouldn't have suffered from the lack of a strategy. Again, you're speaking to a place, Seth, that you're here because I'd probably have you on the show to talk about any book, because I know I'd find value. But this one on strategy has been an Achilles heel for me. I have wanted the intent. I've wanted the help I know I can offer. I've wanted that to lead, only to see things not happen. And I've seen it with so many other people, and it grieves me. And I think it does you.
So I want to just make sure we put a bookmark in this moment, because a lot of people who are listening do sales. And it's tempting to think that you can close a sale. And I think that being in the right place and getting credit for closing the sale is way more important than somehow closing a sale that wasn't closable. So if we think about being a lifeguard on a big lake, if you're a very talented, skilled, caring, heroic lifeguard, what you don't do is jump into the water for people who are swimming quite happily and insist on saving them. But if someone is drowning, you don't need very much salesmanship to get them to want to have their life saved. So the hardest part is to ring the right doorbell, is to find the smallest viable audience of people who are enrolled in wanting to go where you are here to take them.
Yeah.
And one of the side effects of social media and the temptation to believe that you can reach 3 billion or 4 billion people is the ego that says everyone needs this. Well, people might need it, but they don't want it. And you don't have enough leverage to get people who don't want it to engage with you. So the work, I think, is not closing the sale. I think it's opening the sale. Opening the sale by putting up a flag that says, people who are looking for this flag, here it is. And people who aren't, I forgive you, I love you, it's not for you. And if you're not regularly saying it's not for you, you don't get the joke.
That message, smallest viable audience, again, in the past few days, as I'm reviewing your book again, and I saw it again, and I heard it however long ago you said it the first time, a decade more, 2 decades, and realizing it's one of the many, if I was going to have tattoos, one of the many I need to wake up to every morning and remind myself again, because my mind just does not intuitively go there. Especially, probably worse today with social media. And that's the thought of, if I can just get it to go viral, if I can just get more people. And you're saying, no, what's the smallest viable? It's one of the most counterintuitive things ever. And yet it makes absolute sense. And it's probably a top list of things that I need to wake up to and remember that every day, because I waste so much time.
Me too.
Out there. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah. I have to, every time I come back to it, I'm glad I did. Every time I forgive myself and the person who doesn't get the joke, right? I gave a speech in Mexico City 7 years ago. And Zig was on my mind, so that's why the story is relevant. I don't like speaking in convention centers. I don't like speaking to people who don't speak English with the simultaneous translation, because my humor might not come through and the timing is all off because it takes 7 seconds, right? So it's a convention center for simultaneous translation. There's 3,000 people there. And there's a woman in the third row, and she's on her cell phone. But she's not listening to something on her cell phone. She's talking. She is talking at a full volume to someone else in the third row while I'm giving a talk. And I'm up there, and I don't have a script. So I'm just directing everything I got at her. I'm adding stories about talking on the cell phone. I'm just aiming all of my energy at this woman. And then Zig's voice came into my head. And he said to me, there are 2,999 people who are here for you, and one person who's not. Why are you letting those other people down? Yeah. And I ignored her for the rest of the talk. And the rest of the talk went great, because she wasn't even there in my head. She was gone. Because I wasn't there for her, and she wasn't there for me.
This aspect of strategy, and I honed into systems, processes, but systems. And you wrote in the book, Seth, you said, either we make the system or the system makes us. And I immediately I had to look it up. I forgot who said it. It was W. Edwards Deming. Every system is perfectly designed to get the result that it does. And realizing that I don't look back, because my tendency was to say, I so often failed to have a strategy and a system. And I hear Seth saying, no, you did. There was a system at place. It happened every single day. You did. It just happened to you, and it wasn't producing results. So can you happen to it. And again, I'm just going with where I am today, and
Sure.
with where I am today, where it's resonating with is how I have let the system happen. And again, I'm interested to watch myself come back to this and just expecting the good intent to win out.
Yeah.
And it
So
didn't.
let's help people understand systems, because
Please.
they're needlessly complicated, but it's actually pretty simple.
Okay.
The most famous system in the world is the solar system. Even a 4-year-old knows what the solar system is. And the Earth and Jupiter and all the planets except Pluto rotate around the sun. But the thing that holds them together is invisible. It's something we just assert is true. Gravity. Gravity is the glue. The Earth doesn't like revolving around the sun. It just does. And there is a system, for example, in healthcare. There are doctors and nurses and administrators and patients and insurance companies. Everyone is doing their best. But the system doesn't make health. It makes treatments. And it's optimized for that. And so if you're frustrated because the healthcare system is expensive and not helping as many people as it could, don't blame the doctor. Take a look at where the gravity is, at the relationship between all the players, and understand that if you show up as an acupuncturist and say, I can prove I can solve back pain better, no one's going to show up and say, here's a standing ovation. Thank you for solving the problem. Because they're part of a system. We can adjust the system, influence the system, change the system, but we cannot deny its existence and expect to succeed.
That one is incredibly relevant to me, and it will be to my listeners here, Seth, because they know well my dearest friend, Dr. Randy James, is a medical doctor, but he's a functional medicine expert. So my studio that I'm in right now is in a functional medicine practice that we co-founded. And that is generally the initial education, is that the system is broken and we are an alternative to that. Let me ask you, because it's a literal curiosity for my own clarity, and I would guess it is a derailer for a lot of people as well, as to what is not a strategy, or what is or is not. So I've got 3 questions, or 3 topics here along with strategy. I'll just say them all at once instead of one by one. Is a business plan a strategy? Is a blueprint a strategy? Is a franchise a strategy? Help me out with those.
A strategy is the decision to not do something we could do so we can do something else, because we are investing our effort today to get something tomorrow. A strategy is simple to describe and difficult to stick with.
Okay.
So Ray Kroc saw that several things were changing in the system of America. They were cars, people on transit trips way more, television, and a rising middle class that might be interested in buying a pre-made business. So his strategy was, as long as those 3 things are moving in the direction I think they're moving, this business is going to get easier and easier and easier. Right? That's a strategy. Now, a tactic to support that strategy is a milkshake you can drink while you're driving, because that gets $4 more into the till when someone is leaving, because you get the idea, right?
Yeah.
So if you say, I am going to buy a Subway franchise, you have decided to spend your last $60,000 to do this, and you are making some bets about how you will spend your time and energy and how the community will respond. Choosing a Subway franchise instead of building your own sandwich shop or becoming an oboe player, that's a strategic decision. Then once you have a Subway shop, one of the tactics is, should it be in that plaza or this plaza? Because that's supporting the theory of the change you think is going to happen. That make sense?
Yeah. Look, I got a question on that. It was actually something I wanted to ask for clarity on. So use that right there and go into my question initially was going to be, do you have strategies within strategies?
Yes.
Let's look at just business. Okay. Explain it. Cause I was thinking, okay, I can have a strategy for, here's my product. Here's the audience, my minimal viable audience. Here's a strategy to deliver the product, whatever, blah, blah. Okay. But now there's also, which sometimes I think I have done well, and then I may have missed but what's the strategy for actually making a profit? But help me with that, with strategy between tactic, because I hadn't pulled that out of the book. So
over long enough periods of time, tactics become strategies and vice versa. So it gets very confusing. We don't need to worry about it.
Okay.
What we need to worry about is, what's your horizon? So here's an example. If I want to compete with Starbucks, my strategy could be, I will be in the same neighborhood. My stuff will be the same price and better quality, but everyone who comes in here will feel welcome, will feel seen, and it will make their day better. My strategy then is to do something Starbucks is not capable of doing, right? I'm going somewhere they can't go because I'm going to hire friendlier people and I'm going to reward them in ways that get them to act like humans serving humans. That's going to be my strategy. So what's a tactic? A tactic could be every one of my baristas that calls somebody by name gets entered to win a bonus every day. So now I've built a culture where we remember people's names. That was a tactic to support the longer strategy of, I'm going to get my fair share of Starbucks' business by being first in something they're not able to keep up with me on. Okay? If you work as a barista, your tactic to win the bonus can have a strategy as well, which is, I'm going to make sure that I'm saying it very loudly every time the boss is around. That's my tactic to beat their system so I get more than my fair share of bonuses. So there's all the way down. It's like turtles. The key to the whole thing is to say, please tell me what your time horizon is. I started in the book business 40 years ago. And I made choices about projects I would do and would not do so that I could be here talking to you today, Kevin. Right?
Yeah.
That when permission marketing succeeded, they said, will you write the permission marketing handbook? And will you do 5 other books in the permission marketing series? Well, my strategy was, if I do that, my short-term bills will get paid, but I will be the permission marketing person forever and ever. If the book I do after this has Charles Darwin writing the foreword, and I did something that was riskier, whether it works or it doesn't work, I've established a pattern that I can go further with over time. So that was strategic because I was betting on how the world would unfold.
Quick deviation. I referenced you recently to a client, the concept, but not the book. What was the book that, and you've probably done this with multiples, but to me, there was one that stands out, and it was quite a while ago, that you gave away online for free at the, I think, disdain of the publishing world. A lot of people downloaded it. And I think then it ultimately did result in a book deal. Do I have that right? And which book was that?
Almost. It was called Unleashing the Idea Virus.
Okay.
And I was emailing with Malcolm Gladwell today. He wrote the foreword. He saved my life. After permission marketing came out, I was in a very deep funk for a long time. My mom had been ill. A bunch of things shifted in my life. And I was never going to write another book. And Malcolm sent me a copy of The Tipping Point. And 2 weeks later, Unleashing the Idea Virus was done. I wrote the whole book in 2 weeks. Because clearly I had been thinking about it without knowing it. And then I said, well, this is a book about ideas that spread. Maybe I should take my own advice. And so I went to my publisher and I said, this is my next book, but you have to bring it out in 12 weeks and I have to be able to give it away for free. And they said, we'd love to publish this book, but it's going to come out in 9 months and you can't give it away for free.
Right.
So I took my own advice. I gave it away for free. 4 million people downloaded it in the first 9 months or so. And enough of those people said, we love this, but we hate reading it on the screen, that I self-published that book. And the self-published book went to number 4 on all of Amazon. That was when it was easier to pull something like that off. And eventually I sold the rights because I got tired of printing books. But that book completely transformed my career because I strategically took my own advice to say, I can feel the wind at my back. And if I lean into this thing that doesn't look like a big enough opportunity for the big guys yet, I have an advantage because I'm going somewhere they're not willing to go.
Well, that message is still resonating now as I'm talking with a client about the concept. So thank you. Yeah, I remember you called it, people want a souvenir at the least, even if they've read it, even if they've gotten it. You know, I want to hit still on the strategy and tactics. And what came to mind, again, as we're going to just continue to let Ziglar filter through the conversation here. Let's take your life. So here's Seth Godin, and you would have conceptually a strategy for your life, for the impact that you want to have to the world, your family, whatever. So you've got a strategy. Let's take Zig's wheel of life that we talk about a lot here. So the wheel of life, those 7 spokes. So in each of those, going back to strategies within strategies. So you have a strategy for your health and wellness. You have a strategy for your finances, for your work, and on down the road. So let's say your health and wellness. That's a strategy within the overall strategy. And within that, the efforts that you make to go for a walk or lift weights or meditate or whatever it may be are the tactics within that strategy. Is that a clear synopsis? Okay.
Much better than I said it. Yes, exactly right.
Well, you helped me come to, as you were talking, I thought, oh, that helps me. Because I was still kind of grappling with the strategy and the strategies and the tactic I had not brought in prior to this conversation.
Yeah. So here's an easy way, 2 easy ways to think about it. You should throw tactics out as soon as you get bored with them, as soon as they stop working. We switch tactics all the time. We don't switch strategies very easily, right? So if it turns out that going for a walk drives you crazy with boredom in the winter, switch your tactic and get a rowing machine. That's fine. You still have the same strategy, which is I'm going to be healthier, but the tactic shifted by the weather. Second thing, when we think about competition, tell everybody your strategy. Strategies are not secret, but your tactics, those can be a secret. It doesn't matter. That's how you're going to surprise the competition. But your strategy, Netflix announces its strategy years in advance. It wasn't a secret. Same with Apple. Same with Nike. Strategy is not a secret. Tactics. Oh yeah, here's a new kind of sneaker no one thought of. It's available tomorrow. That can be a secret.
I like word pictures, and you helped me with this concept, and it's one that I will probably use forevermore. And it was, I think, in the fairly beginning of the book. Let me look at my notes. You titled it "The Building or the Roads," and you said, "I'll cut the long story short." You showed a map. Here's a map in 1924. Here's one in 2024. All the roads are still there. All the buildings have changed. That was an incredible picture for me to look at. The systems that support it all overall should be, or generally going to be there. That's what makes it happen. But would that be one? The tactics, again, within there are going to change according to times. If IBM had changed their tactics, then their road system would still be there and they would be successful. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. That was helpful. I wanted to hit on, right at the beginning, you say strategy is a philosophy of becoming. Who we will become, we will be of service to, and who will they help others to become. The first two seemed, those were obvious to me to some degree. Who we will become, maybe not obvious, but that made sense. Who we will become, who will be of service to. And I found, I don't know that I have in that comprehension come to that third one. And who will they help others to become? Unpack that a little for me, if you would.
Okay. So the first one, as you said, is pretty straightforward.
Right.
Today's today. 6 months from now is going to be 6 months from now. When the person I am becoming meets the person I hope to be, is that meeting going to go well or not?
Yeah.
Right. The second one is, who exactly am I here to serve? Who is my smallest viable audience. And the third one, maybe I'm misremembering it, but the third one is who will I help them become? So that person is also trying to get somewhere. Maybe that person wants to become a teacher and they'll help other people get somewhere, but mostly it's who will I help them become? So your friend, the functional doctor, he may say that what I'm trying to do is find people who are feeling a lack of hope, who are wrestling with pain. And I want to help them become folks who are either comfortable with the pain they have left or delighted that the pain is gone. That is the transformation I am trying to make.
Right.
And you can tell a short-term hustler because they say, I'm going to find someone who walks on a used car lot. And for 5 minutes, I'm going to help them become someone who thinks they're buying a good car. And if 2 weeks from now they have buyer's remorse and they hate me, not my problem. Well, we don't want to be that person. But plenty of people, because of tactics, have chosen to be that person because they don't have a long-term strategy of who they are helping others become.
And if you do that latter aspect too, Zig Ziglar will strike you dead. That is anti-sales from Zig. You, a part of that same aspect, Seth, that resonated with me is a strategy isn't a map. It's a compass. I'm on that tact in my life overall right now, just the fluidity of it and the errancy of my own. I'm going to use the word rigidity. I don't feel like a rigid guy, but hoping that, hey, I figured this out. It's good. And I'm good with that long term. Even in my back to health and wellness, the things that I did that succeeded for me, even though I feel like my ability is still there at 53 years old, I am not getting the results. And I've even gotten counsel on what will help me. And I still don't want to hear it. I still want to believe that when I go out, that I can redline it on my mountain bike ride or my run, and it will help me. I enjoy doing that. There are some benefits, but overall, I need more slow efforts and longer. And I continue to buck against that. So I'm wanting to stick to a map. The compass is I want to be healthy, well, able, fit, vibrant, and I can still do that. But I need to look at the compass and change the efforts. So that's what it brought me to, not a static aspect, but a fluid aspect. Have I got the spirit of it?
Yeah. I mean, when we think about dealing with a system, it's easy to think that we're stuck in traffic, but actually we are traffic. And you are fortunately 30 years later, 30 years older. If that hadn't happened, you'd be gone, right? That the system changes and we are part of the system. So you can insist all you want that you should be able to play midnight hockey and wake up at 4 a.m. and be fine, but you can't. So if your compass is what I want is to feel the best I'm capable of feeling, that is different than saying, I need to be able to run a mile in 5 minutes. One is absolute. One is based on a map and is frozen in time. One is relative. It says, what I'm here to do is go in this direction. And when you think about it from a larger organizational point of view, compasses are things like Moore's Law. I've understood Moore's Law when I was 18. So since 1978, I have made bets that computers are going to get cheaper and more powerful. That's my compass. I'm going to do something that doesn't bet against that. And as long as that keeps happening, the kind of media bets I make are more likely to do better than not. So when you hear people freaking out because AI read their writing and now they're trying to sue AI systems from doing that, they're betting against it. They're betting against AI and Moore's Law. That's not a good strategy. That's not going to help them.
Okay, I'm going to take the liberty of a quick deviation on that, just on AI. So we're going to come right back here because I got a question here. But you, I know, are an advocate. I'm aware of Claude because my brother Jared on Gaza, you're pretty much at the top of the list of gurus that he tuned into. He said there's nobody else over the past decades that I have continued to religiously tune into than Seth Godin. So Jared, I told Seth, there you go. I get credit for that, but he is, I mean, he's such a devotee there, and he turned me on to Claude because of you. And in looking at that, I'm going to take the privilege of being with you to ask you just about opportunity real quick. So a sidebar with Seth on AI, that as it is doing such an incredible job of being a knowledge worker now. So as have gone through time, through the muscle age to the industrial age to the information age, and now it's just kicking butt there. What's the next age that the opportunity with AI taking over a lot of the information?
So the first thing is, I'm not saying that it won't cause dislocations. I'm not even saying it won't lead to the end of the world. All I'm saying is I can't stop it. Here's this tool. And in the same way, electricity has killed tens of thousands of people since they electrified the world. It has also enabled us to live this extraordinary life. AI is the biggest change in our world since electricity. And try to imagine it's 1900. You go to some blacksmith shop or some apothecary, and you tell them about electricity, and they say, "Nah, I'm anti-electricity." You'd say, "This is ridiculous, right? Look at all these things, and we're not even talking about the things that haven't come yet." So AI is going to be here. What should we do about it? The biggest thing is this: don't do anything for money that AI can do for free. Because you're just going to be fighting and fighting and fighting. So let's say you do fairly good, mediocre copywriting, fairly good website copy, fairly good direct mail. I got a computer that can do it for free, just as well as you. Which means you either have to do off the charts, amazing, unique human copy and writing, or you got to hire an AI to do it and see how long you can resell it for. But it doesn't make sense for you to try to make a living doing something the same way. When electricity showed up, if you had an ox and a thing, it didn't make sense for you to try to get money for using your ox. We don't need an ox anymore. We have a tractor, whatever it is. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, you should use it for half an hour every day, whether you need it or not, because that's the only way you can get really smart about it. You can ask it. I mean, the breakthrough for me with Claude is a bunch of us over the course of 6 months wrote a 40-page business plan for a new project. And these were people I had built in a network around the world. We didn't meet in person. We just kept updating this Google Doc. It's 40 pages long. I upload it to Claude and I say, please review this business plan, highlight the contradictions and the weaknesses. And in 20 seconds, it wrote a 2-page MBA quality memo. And everything in it was useful. It says, on this page you said this, and on this page you said this. Which is it? It said you're betting on this happening. And if you can ask this thing that has read the entire internet a question in English and challenge it to challenge your thinking, why wouldn't you do that?
Well, the question was, what is contradictory, and what was the other point? You said two things.
I said, what parts of the business plan contradict each other, and which parts feel thin or don't hold water? What are the assertions in this business plan that need to be challenged?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, thank you. That was worth the price of entry right now, because when we get off this thing, I'm going to do that. I have a business plan we're working on right now that needs that question and another one. So thank you. I'm grateful for the deviation. Where I was going next, Seth, on strategy is go back to the roads scenario that you said. Here's the map, and here's the map, however long later. And the systems are there, but the buildings have all changed. I wanted you to reconcile for me. It was later in the book, you talked about not that you didn't say it as the danger, but maybe a negative side to some of the systems, as you referenced Michelin making the tire that never wears out, and the system wouldn't accommodate. It brought to mind another example, something like that I couldn't quite germinate in my head, but as something that made sense, but the system wouldn't allow it. So here we're giving credit and value to a long-standing aspect pathway of systems and adhering to that somewhat. And then over here saying, and it's not always constructive. Fair?
In the face of innovation, it's never constructive.
Okay.
Because innovation changes the system, and like the roads, the systems don't want to change. So the Michelin story is they spent tens of millions of dollars to design a tire that would never go flat, which makes perfect sense. Everyone wants one of those. Then they persuaded Mercedes and a couple other car companies to offer it as an option. And then they licensed the technology to other tire manufacturers. So it looked like they had done everything they were supposed to do. And they had projections that it was going to do $1 billion in the first year or two and completely transform the tire business.
Mm-hmm.
And it failed. And the reason it failed is this. When something goes wrong with a tire, where do you take it? You don't take it to the dealer. You take it to the local garage. There are a lot of local garages. And in order to fix one of these tires, the garage needed tens of thousands of dollars of special equipment. And most garages hadn't heard of the tire.
Mm-hmm.
No one had done anything to help them understand the tire, and they didn't have the equipment for the tire. So now think about it. You're the local garage owner. You have a line of business fixing tires. Customer comes in a fancy Mercedes, and their tire, they can't drive, right? So what do? What you do is you give them the regular kind of tire, and you tell them they made a mistake to buy the fancy kind of tire. And now this person who's got this broken, expensive tire calls their dealer, and they're furious. And the dealers call Mercedes, and Mercedes calls Michelin, and a year later it was dead. Because if you're going to change a system, you got to figure out where the scaffolding is, where the levers are. What is going to be in place to cause the system to change? Right? So if you think about YouTube, if YouTube had gone to CBS and said, we want CBS to be a partner of YouTube, CBS would have thrown them out, right? They had to figure out how to build a whole new system that is going to take probably, by the time they're done, 40 years to eliminate network TV. That's how many generations have to go by before an existing profitable entity that dictates our culture goes away completely. But YouTube was able to go to a 12-year-old and say, you want to post a video? Here you go. And they were able to go to a 9-year-old and say, you want to watch a video? Here it is. And so they didn't need CBS to get involved. The problem Michelin had is they couldn't do it without the local garages, but they didn't do anything to get the local garages on their side.
Is that a caution then, not against it, but to align, to look at the alignment of innovation, is to look at the system and caution yourself. I say that because I remember, however many years it would be ago, but back when the internet and websites were a little newer. And I would tend to look at something and go, that just doesn't make sense. I can do something better. And I might have even looked at it and gone, I'm just an innovator. I'm just going to make something different for the sake of doing something different. And I hurt myself. And now the analogy that I think of is that let's take a shopping cart, an online shopping cart. And let's say you've got an innovation, an idea, and you're selling something, you think, oh, I'm going to change that. My thought is, if the system, even just the common perspective on a system is so set, you might caution yourself, because if Amazon is the leading shopping cart construct, which I would assume it is, but we know that one, that's what people are used to. If I'm going to come over here with a business, my thought is now, don't be innovative with your shopping cart. Just model what Amazon does, because if you deviate from that and confuse people, it's going to be a negative because they're the system. Is that relevant?
It is. But be very careful about the word people.
Okay.
We're not trying to change people. We're trying to change the smallest viable audience.
Okay.
So I've had a lot of very big innovations, and almost all of them have failed completely, because I go to people who have power, but I don't have power to cause them to walk away from their system. So spam is a real problem. And I could see that in the 90s. And I was fortunate that Yahoo bought my company. So I'm in a room at Yahoo that controls 25% of all the email. And there's AOL, and they have 30% of all the email. So I'm like, if AOL and Yahoo got together and sold stamps for email, and the stamp would cost 1 penny per 100 emails, they could fix the email problem. There would be no more spam. Because spammers send millions of emails. They couldn't afford the stamps. Individuals, you could come up with ways that they could get, 100 free stamps a day, no problem. But I needed the head of AOL, because there was no one at AOL's job, to say yes, and the head of Yahoo to say yes, to do something risky in a moment when neither one of them wanted to do something risky. Because in 1998, what they wanted to do was watch the stock price go up. And doing something risky was going to undo that. So my mistake was not figuring out who I needed to transform and what did they want versus what did I want, right? Jerry Yang wasn't focused on how do I avoid spam taking over the internet in 20 years. Jerry Yang was focused on how do I reward the investors who believed in me back in the day? How do I walk in at work and see smiles on the faces of people because the stock price went up? So the empathy to talk to the person in charge of the roads, if you're trying to rewire the roads, is critical. Because, the roads in Boston are a disaster, but they're not fixed because so many people have a stake in keeping them the way they are.
Your story didn't have a solution on the email, spam, and stamp, does it? Did it?
Well, the spam thing got addressed in a different way because Gmail built a new system that made the other people sort of obsolete. And they built into that new system advanced spam features, but it wasn't something I could do because I didn't have the leverage to do that. So there's all these problems that, like getting doctors around the world to wash their hands. That's a big problem, but there's not one single doctor that can solve it. You have to create systemic conditions to cause systems to change.
I will ruminate on that as I have an idea I think would revolutionize health insurance. And yet the system I'm so overwhelmed by. I keep hoping for, a stone tablet out of the sky to tell me how to do that one. So I will revisit this on this topic. One of the aspects of your book that I probably came back to most often was, again, it was fairly at the beginning, but you mentioned it a couple times. What do people want?
Yeah.
What do people want? And you said affiliation. And in my head, I thought belonging to an aspect. They want to belong. But number one, affiliation. Number two, status. And then now when I think I translated that to be, valued and affirmed and be important. It was really the last one that hit me though, Seth. You said freedom from fear. And it was later on somewhere in the book, and I just tacked it up to this one as well. You also wrote, this is what helps us see that what most people in most systems want is reassurance, freedom from fear, knowing that they're going to be okay and that tomorrow will be okay too. Now, I'm biased on that one because I'm working on a therapy method over in the therapy world as well that's really looking at our natural propensity that, stimuli happens, our brain goes to work doing what it's supposed to do, and it creates a story and it creates meaning so that we can deal with it appropriately, and realizing that meaning is going to be centered around protecting me. That gives me pause to step back and consider and question everything that I think and feel. But so again, that hit what you wrote here. What do people want? Affiliation, status, freedom from fear. And then you also not support that, but you attached to that marketing. You said marketing works on these three principles and systems all use them to maintain their structure. It's a powerful anchor to me. That again, that's going to stick with me from here on. Affiliation, status, and freedom from fear. And my first thought was, where do we tend to miss that most? Or do we just miss it often completely? We just think problem solution and we don't take all three of them into context.
What makes it a problem, right? That most of the people who are listening to this don't have the problem of, I don't have enough to eat tonight. And they don't have the problem of, I don't have a roof over my head. They have the problem of, my car isn't shiny enough, or the problem of, I need to get ahead at work, or the problem of, how can I get my kid to do better at baseball? These are modern privileged problems that are all based on status, affiliation, and the freedom from fear. So baked into your thesis of problems and solutions is what I'm saying. Marketing isn't hype or advertising. Marketing is how we decide something is a problem and how we decide something is a solution.
Your piece that I just put in there, that most people want reassurance, and I'm just remembering now, came from initially saying it was our gravitation towards, it was either convenience or comfort. I think you might have said convenience.
Convenience, yeah.
And attaching that to wanting reassurance, I interest myself with that concept. Help me with that attachment of reassurance. I would not have gone to, I would not have gotten to the other place.
Okay, so if you're an artist or creator of any kind, reassurance is futile, because the minute I tell you you're going to do great, your new idea is going to be successful, the doubts return and you're going to need me to reassure you a minute from now. So we should not seek reassurance if we are creating. But most people seek reassurance most of the time. That we want to know we bought the right thing. That if you've gone out to dinner with a friend and you're splitting the check, they turn to you and they say, how much are you tipping? What difference does it make how much you're tipping? They could be sitting at another table. You don't have anything. Why do you need to tip the same? Right? Well, status, affiliation, reassurance, freedom of fear. It's all the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. And convenience kicks in, and this is all from Tim Wu. Convenience kicks in because then we don't have to think about it. Things that are convenient become invisible. And if they're invisible, they can't make us afraid.
I appreciate your, I don't know if I want to call it candor or humility in this, of saying, I felt like you went back and forth. Again, we're looking at strategy. That's an overall construct that we're talking about here. And you said it felt like you felt it's difficult. It's elusive. And yet there's also a lot of simplicity in that. So people are going to hear this, okay, I got to get a strategy. And obviously we'll tell them, go get the book. This is something to study and look at. What are the telltale signs that you have an effective strategy? Well, either way, the signs that you do or that you don't. So if somebody's sitting here, and I'm going to especially call out to the entrepreneurs, which is my framework and a lot of them out there. If we want to look for red flags or green flags. Green flag that it's working, red flag that it's not. Just the obvious ones that you see from a mile away, because this is the world that you work in.
The thing people need to do isn't to buy the book, it's to talk about it. The book exists to help people talk about it. Okay. But if they can talk about it without the book, it's fine with me. And I give instructions at the beginning about how to talk to Claude about it. But it's even better if you talk to your peers about it.
And that was actually, I think, the first chapter or the first segment of your book was talk with people about it. So yeah, please keep going.
So the first way I can tell you don't have a strategy is you don't want to talk about it. The second thing is, I ask you, what's the change you seek to make and who are you seeking to change? And if your answer is, I'm just selling flowers to people who want flowers, then you don't have a strategy. You're a part of a system. You're doing your job. Nothing wrong with that. But you don't have a strategy. Right? What is the change we seek to make and who are we seeking to change? And once we start down this road, I think the book contains more than 500 different questions following Zig's footsteps. You got to be able to answer these questions for yourself. Or you got to say, I refuse to answer this question and now I know what I need to work on. Mm-hmm. But, when Magellan gets in a boat and is going on this voyage he doesn't say, oh, I'll just go left or right, whatever I feel like as I go. There's a purpose. There's an intent. There's a knowledge of the waves. Yes, you're exploring. We have no idea what's over there, but we know that when we get there, what questions we'll need to ask to decide what to do next. So, errands need to be done. You need to go to the supermarket and get some bread. But errands are not your work. Your work is to find a strategy and make a change happen.
You mentioned the word, you just did it, and you've mentioned it a bunch of times here, is change. What is the change that you want to make? Which reminds me of my brother, Jared Angaza, who said, he did say yesterday in a message to me, he said, man, I gotta be for candor. He works with me. And so he got in, he says, I just looked at Seth's book. I had to. And so he went in there and he says, I just realized that pretty much everything that I teach as a brand strategist, I think I got from Seth. So he took your aspect of change and says, what's the cause? What do you want to cause in this? But it just hit me now that, and this is actually, you've got a lot of lists as you talk about. You've got one of, 40 questions to ask. You've got one that I pulled out, a series of 17 questions that shines a light on the work to be done. And the second one is, what is the change we seek to make? And what hit me just as you were talking just now is, you're asking that. And I tend to think, what is better about my product? How is it unique or different? Whatnot? Neither of which says, what is the change that we seek to make?
So there's nothing wrong with saying our rubber balls bounce twice as high as everybody else's rubber balls. But now you're a cog in the system. And that's fine, but you don't have much to build on other than waiting for someone who's already decided to buy a rubber ball to look at all the rubber balls that are on offer and pick yours. Right?
All right.
My friend Danny runs some of the most well-known restaurants in the US. If you asked Danny and his team, what is the change we seek to make if someone comes to Union Square Cafe for lunch? The answer is not to turn a hungry person into someone who isn't hungry anymore. Because for 1/10 the price, they can get an empanada at the deli next door. That's not why you go to Union Square Cafe and drop $80 for lunch. You go there because when the maitre d' recognizes you and calls you by name, and when the waiter remembers your favorite kind of wine, and when the chef doesn't give you a hard time about your soy allergy, and when the person you brought with you for lunch sees how you belong here and your level of confidence, and it makes your meeting go better, that's what you came for. They changed your day, right? And it took you several visits to earn that privilege from the restaurant, but you're glad you did it because now you're a different kind of person because of your relationship with this iconic restaurant. That's what Danny sells. He doesn't sell potato chips. Potato chips are a tactic, but the transformation is he now knows his compass. He knows who to hire next. He knows what to put on the menu next. He knows how much to charge because he understands why he's here.
It reminds me of who you introduced us to, Sean Askinosie, with Askinosie chocolate, which my father, Dan Miller, got from you. And that's what he sent for decades now as gifts to people, including his son, me. So I benefited from those every Christmas or Father's Day or whatever. I'd get chocolates from Sean Askinosie, which for my listeners, we had just look up. He's been on the show and we're going to have him back on soon. And thanks to all the people who sent me Askinosie chocolates when my father passed away, because they knew the story that he sent me chocolates. And now that he's not here, so I've got great friends and I connected with Sean, and he is one who has made a big influence on a lot of people. And as you just said, it's not about the chocolate. Fair?
It's not about the chocolate. It's about the chocolate. So Sean and I are working together to make a collectible chocolate bar that will come out with this book. And there's only going to be a few thousand bars in the whole world. The packaging went to press yesterday. You're the first person I'm telling this to.
Yeah, so, I was going to say, how can I get the inside track to get one of those?
It's going to be a blend of 3 beans, which they've never done before. What does the phrase, "it's not about the chocolate, it's about the chocolate," mean? Hershey's says, Halloween is coming. You got to give away something. You might as well give away this. It's cheap. For the money you spend, it's fine. That's what they sell. They sell chocolate. What Sean sells is the story of that farmer in the Philippines, that woman in Tanzania, those kids he sends to private school, the community outreach he does in Missouri, the open book management, the effort it took to bring that chocolate to you. That story is what you buy when you buy an Eskimosi chocolate bar. Not about the chocolate. It's about the chocolate.
I'm looking over at the chocolate that I'll enjoy here in just a moment. Somebody sent me the chocolate library, so I have been taste testing those. I'll shoot him a text after this and tell him we talked about him. You in that list, and again, it was something that just hit me, and I was curious about. One of the questions you ask is, who has done something like this before me? And my thought, I was actually curious just about you, Seth. Are you writing that? And would you be looking for, it's an opportunity if somebody hasn't gone before me, or it is a caution that somebody hasn't gone before me?
If someone has never done anything like this before you, you are probably hiding and dreaming, and you are probably not going to succeed. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try, but you should know Neil Armstrong was the first person on the moon, but there were people who had been in orbit. There were people who had gone halfway first. If we had tried to go to the moon in 1940 straight up, that would have been a foolish death mission, right? So if you're saying, here's this industry filled with giant big box stores, but I'm going to succeed by being a mom and pop that is going to open right next to them and no one's ever done that before. I mean, it might be a fun article in Fast Company, but I'm not sure you should invest the next 5 years of your life in it. If you see the system, you will see what has come before. And just about everything that succeeds rhymes with what happened before. Chuck Berry did not make the first rock and roll record. That Neil Young wasn't the first person to do something sort of like what Neil Young did. It is possible to be iconic and singular and iconoclastic, but you still rhyme with something that worked in the system before you.
The question right next to that one I just had was, what systems are in play? I think I'm coming back to this again on looking at, I guess, would you call it a balance of honoring the systems that are there, because I tend to want to question them. And yet I think the frustration, and I look at that and I would think that that's an opportunity as well. And yet I feel like I've learned the hard way, especially as an entrepreneur and an innovator and all these things that I appreciate and enjoy. But I caution myself greatly these days with the system of, there may be a great opportunity. Like, again, go back to the healthcare system. And I think that it's not just me, but we think that we have not a solution, but we can make a dent in this for people who are health minded. And we've got the pieces that actually works. But man, the system in this scenario is almost so overwhelming. I'm struggling with faith of finding a way in there. And so
let's, as we wrap this up, because I'm going to have to go in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
There are plenty of smallish ventures. By smallish, I mean not $1 billion in size. Enterprises that thrive right next to the big medical system of the United States. So Canyon Ranch, my local acupuncturist, the apothecary that sells these lozenges that I've been eating all day, right? You can do very well, but you're not insisting that they get rid of all the CAT scan and MRI machines at the big hospital. That if your bet is we don't succeed unless we replace the whole thing, that bet is too big. But if your bet is there are 100 people whose lives we can change, and that will get us to 1,000, and that will get us to 10,000, Now time is on your side. You don't, getting a meeting with the CEO of almost any big company is a waste of time, because the CEO is like the queen or king of a country. They're a figurehead. They're not actually going to change the big strategy. They might introduce you to people, but it's all about the cultural shift. So I invented email marketing, and I went on meetings with lots and lots of really fancy places saying, this is the future and I can prove it. And almost all of them said, go away. Some of them gave us a trial. It ended up becoming the future because smaller companies that weren't invested in the old system started using it. And it filtered up. The same way Google now runs ads from giant companies. But those ads aren't how Google started. They started with people who competed with those companies. And then those companies saw that someone was buying the word Chanel. So they had to go buy the word Chanel. Mm. So the system is on alert and will respond. But you cannot persuade it just by proving you're right.
Seth, thanks for putting this book out, for compiling the wisdom and the issues. I appreciate how it circles back on each other as you talk about that it does. And you've given me great value. I know the audience will receive that as well, but thanks for giving us some important parts to ponder, and even that to come back and do the game well and let that be part of the integrity of putting something out that matters. So thank you.
Thank you. The work does matter, and I appreciate the ruckus you make. We'll see you.
Friends, thanks so much for joining us on this journey. Again, that's Seth Godin. His book, This is Strategy, Make Better Plans. If for some reason you're not aware of Seth, just type in Seth Godin, Godin, and you'll find everything everywhere and see how prolific he really is. Got a comment, question for Seth, for me? Just let me know. Go to kevinmiller.co and connect with me there. And until the next episode, I hope this one helps you drive further. And most of all, enjoy the ride.
Yeah.